Hi everyone, this is Tommy from Stories on Board. I'm going to show you today how you can connect your story map to a Trello board and integrate between the two platforms in real time and bidirectionally. The visual layout of the story map helps team members and stakeholders to plan and communicate details more efficiently with each other. Planning your product on Stories on Board will also enable for your team to stay focused and organized. You can describe your user personas, defining their goals and user journey, visualizing the entire product backlog on the story map, organizing and prioritizing user stories into releases. This user-centered product backlog approach enables team members and stakeholders to see the project from a big picture point of view and also establishing shared understanding around the project. Let's connect the story map to a Trello board. In the integration settings, you need to enable the Trello integration, and as a first step, you need to authenticate your account in Trello. You will be seeing how many workspaces and boards you have access to. Once you are allowing the connection, you can select the relevant board to connect the story map with. The integration setup wizard will guide you through the integration process. You can decide what information you want it to synchronize in real time between Trello and Stories on Board, enabling title changes of your card and synchronizing description changes between the two platforms. You can also identify a Trello list on export where you want to push cards from Stories on Board, and you need to select the destination of your cards. You can also allow editors to import cards from Trello into Stories on Board, and you can also decide whether or not you want to import cards from an archive list from Trello into Stories on Board. There is also a possibility to set up status mapping between the two platforms. You can see on the left side Trello lists, and you can also identify and matching the same with Stories on Board statuses. And just like that, you already set up the integration between Stories on Board and Trello. When a user story has all its details, including their description, team members can also include scenarios, acceptance criteria, or any additional information that can help team members to complete this task. Now you can push this card to Trello. When you are pushing the card to Trello, it's going to be created in the list which you set up on Stories on Board as an exporting destination, in our scenario, in the to-do list. You can see the card has been created and reflecting all information on the Stories on Board story card detail. Now if you change anything on this card, it will be also reflecting back to Stories on Board, and of course if you make changes on Stories on Board, either in the title or even in the description, it's also going to be synchronized with Trello. Once a user story card integrated with Trello, you can open it anytime within the Trello interface. When you are progressing with your items, you can simply move them in between Trello lists. They are also going to be indicating status changes on the story map of your cards. When you are planning your releases on the story map, you can even push an entire release to Trello, including all its user stories. Now the only thing I need to do is visiting the release details and push all cards into the relevant Trello list. You can now see cards are being created in the to-do list. When team members are working with items, they will be moving them in between Trello lists on your board. These changes are also going to be reflected back on Stories on Board. You can see on the story map how user stories are being completed and handled by team. Now that we already know how we can plan and push cards from Stories on Board to Trello and keep them in sync, there are also scenarios when team members are creating issues on the Trello interface. Depending on which list you are creating your new item, will be reflecting on the status change on Stories on Board. If I'm creating a new item in research list, when we are importing that into Stories on Board, that will be reflecting also on the research status. When a new item is created on Trello, which is not yet on Stories on Board, on the story map, you will be notified by a red dot on the integration. You can click on syncing changes from Trello into Stories on Board. Imported cards are arriving in the first column and they will be placed under the unscheduled area on the story map. Then you can simply drag and drop the card and put it into the right release. If there are no more cards under the import, you can delete the placeholder. You can maximize the efficiency of your integration with Trello by setting up Trello Power Up. In this case, in Trello you will be able to see the parent cards of your user story, which releases they are taking place in. You can synchronize also the estimation in story points, any card annotation which is placed on the card on Stories on Board, and also you will be able to see the card color that you select on the Stories on Board platform. To enable the connection with Trello Power Up, visit your integration settings of the story map, where you will find an integration identifier key. You can copy this key and go to Trello. Open your settings and visit Trello Power Apps. Simply search for Stories on Board, add the Power Up, and confirm your decision. Since we have an already existing integration, you can proceed and just copy the integration identifier key from Stories on Board and authenticate. Upon a successful authentication, you can continue your work. The Power Up enables to see even more details from your story map. Displaying more information on each Trello cards are helping team members understand better the tasks they are working on. They can see the steps, the release, the user story points, and any card annotation if they assigned on Stories on Board. If you open the ticket, you also have access to its goal. Any changes on Stories on Board will be also applied the link card on Trello as well. The real-time and bidirectional integration enable team members to stay up to date in all time. Any changes made on Stories on Board will also happen on Trello side. You can also update card description or modifying details, for example updating the estimation of the user story on Trello side. That will be also considered in Stories on Board. You can also move your cards in between Trello lists that will be also impacted on Stories on Board, indicating the changes. The connection between the story map and your Trello board will enable the team to synchronizing in real time bidirectionally critical product related informations. And now it is your turn to create your story map and plan amazing products for your users on Stories on Board.